Good morning, everyone. I'm Luda Kopakina from GAI Insights, and we are here to rate AI daily news, essential, important, and optional, saving you time in your busy day and pointing out what is really important in the very crowded landscape in this industry. We have a very cool set of articles from Defense Llama and Kia Global using GenAI in design of automotive. We have an interesting technique in adaptive caching, speeding up video production, and the like. So it feels like the GenAI is spreading its wings. So let's start with the first article, Ankash.
Sure, thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Wired, and it talks about a $50 million movie using GenAI to de-age Tom Hanks.
Yeah, this is amazing. Just looking at some of the clips, what they did is absolutely stunning. To to not use any hardware, just Gen AI, to adjust Tom Hanks and other actors to their previous age, right? So, Adam, what do you think about this?
This is optional news, certainly very interesting and a cool development. Makes a lot of sense. So, as it actually describes right in what's on the screen there, the crew during filming was watching two monitors simultaneously, the real output as well as the real-time filtering or modification that the generative AI was doing. And it's not that CGI can't do this, but it used to be weeks or months of post-production after filming to then modify it. Whereas here they're laying down the original video with the modifications on it. So it's streamlining an extraordinary process. It's really cool use of the technology, but probably optional for our listeners.
Okay,
Yep.
Tim, Paul?
Agree. Really unbelievable at one level, but definitely optional. But this is where you're always headed, especially in movie production. You want real-time effects so you can see what the movie's actually going to look like while you're filming it. So this is a big step. And if you're in Hollywood or in the media industry, essential, but outside of that, optional. Interesting.
I do, Tim and Adam, I agree with the optional, but boy, to me, what's really notable about this is that not only this is going in production. I mean, they're shipping this movie here. This is de-aged and it's shipping. So it's radical cost improvement, time improvement into movies that are going out the door here in an industry that had strikes 18 months ago.
Yeah, and this wouldn't have been possible without Gen AI. This is like a new type of movie that we got, right? Reading this, I'm going to go watch it. It's just how it goes. It's really amazing. And some at the end of the article, they talk about actors who really say, look at and tell their trusts to never, ever, ever do this type of things to them, right? So it's a lot of controversy in the movie industry. But optional it is. Okay, optional. Next one, Ankash.
Yes, Luda. So the next one comes from Kia Global Design, and it talks about how they have used GenAI for automotive design.
Yes, it's actually, this article is from Autodesk that they cooperated with. What do you think about it, Paul?
Oh, I thought it's interesting. I had it optional as well. I had optional. I mean, I think a little bit like we just talked about here, the design can be an important area here, and I think it's an important area for Gen AI, but this particular article is optional.
Yeah. So what they've done is used Autodesk AI platform to come up with conceptual designs of the wheels and then transfer it from 2D to 3D. There wasn't much training. It looks like on their particular data. So they used generalized whatever data was available on Autodesk, and the speed up was stunning. And it's also eliminating the blockages in the conceptual design process. So much faster.
Yeah. I do think it's notable. Sorry, Lou.
Go ahead, Paul.
I think it's notable. This article and one before are both multimodal applications here. So it's showing, how fast we're moving beyond just text to text.
Right, Tim.
Yeah, I think I agree. And Ashish was commenting, and it is true. We see these pretty amazing things, because it's pretty amazing actually, and they're optional. They're not even making the grade too important. Like, read it when you have time. It's like, yeah, just let this one pass by. There's so much.
Adam, it's not even upper pocket optional. It's just deep pocket optional.
Yeah. It's interesting. One thing that to note here is that they did build a purpose-built platform with a open source product. So again, to the ideas of more and more large companies, particularly for things like conceptual design that are highly confidential, are likely to want more control over the training data and the use of the model. And so this is a purpose-built model. This is not just random Autodesk AI stuff that they built with Autodesk using their platform, but it's built with an open source Diffusion platform so they can control it.
Yeah, and so that's why I said that GenAI is spreading its wings, because here we are, actually serious cases with quite significant ROI, and we're giving them optional, and they're across the board. So that's the amazing thing. It's fascinating. Okay, optional it is. Next one, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from IBM, and it talks about their sort of new offering, which reduces the time taken to write regulatory submissions.
Okay, what do you think about it, Tim? It's your
this one I would give an important to, because around the world, this issue is enormous, particularly in life sciences, but it's a general issue where enterprises often have significant compliance requirements of one sort or another. They're interacting with various bureaucracies that control their business, and they have to do it properly or they get in trouble. And on the other side of it, if they do it better, then they can accelerate time to market of products and things. So in particular, this is about life sciences. And I have some experience there. So the average drug application, once you've completed some trial work to the FDA in the United States, is over 100,000 pages. So it's an enormous compliance burden. Necessary, I would argue. That's a whole nother story, because you're talking about the lives and deaths of tens of millions of people, and you need a lot of data. And you want that data to be very meticulously reported so that others can review that data and potentially try and replicate it, all sorts of things. So while there is, I'm sure, needless paperwork in there, there's a lot of it that's just required. You have to report all the clinical trial stuff, adverse events, all sorts of stuff. And financial services, lots of other industries have similar, maybe not quite this complex, but significant compliance requirements. And they just have to be done. They're a cost of doing business. So this is an example where they reduce that cost substantially and reduce time substantially, which in the case of a drug is absolutely critical. So for life sciences people, this is essential. For the rest of the world, I would say it's important to understand, because this is one of those obvious use cases to me that hasn't appeared that much, and should, in my opinion. It should, if you have significant compliance requirements, you should be looking at this stuff.
Yeah, and the impact is what, 75 to 90 something % impact in terms of time savings. Amazing.
Yes, pretty significant. Yeah.
Ankash, you were going to highlight a portion, a sentence. Do you want to add something?
Sorry, Luda, I was speaking on mute. Yeah, just wanted to highlight that they are using Microsoft Azure AI Studio and AutoGen framework.
Yeah, that was interesting, right? So they put the bio expertise on top of the Microsoft platform. That's interesting for IBM.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this is having long done business with IBM in various forms. This is IBM's consulting business, which will use whatever tools it wants. And in fact, ironically, is often disincented from using IBM tools for various financial reasons. So here they're using OpenAI despite the fact that they're an IBM unit.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Okay, important it is. Adam,
Ludo,
okay with that?
yeah, if I can just add though, this is part of why I thought it was important. Tim makes the great point in terms of how much need there is for something like this, but it's one of the first use cases I've seen of a multi-agent framework on Azure AI Studio.
Yeah.
Which we've heard about, but now we're actually starting to see it like in production and being used. And I just want to emphasize, and it's a quote from there as well. It said, by creating a series of agents or digital workers focused on addressing the different steps, and this is key, but able to interact with each other, it enables a coherent, consistent approach which mitigates hallucination, is fully traceable, and allows overarching monitoring and compliance, underpinning transparency and accountability. So they're really trying to keep the human in the loop, have the right checkpoints, but enable these agents to do, like it said, 75 to 90% of the first draft.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing I want to, great comments, Tim, and Ed. I also want to just highlight so we're, I think we mentioned yesterday, we're building now a database of all these great use cases out there, and it's already, quite large. But Tim, I really like this. This is it's just like contracts. This is like most mundane area. It's not sexy at all. We're seeing ROI of $10 million plus in some of these contract GenAI use cases here. And the same thing, 100 pages or 100,000 pages compliant, put a bullet in my head, and massive savings. We've seen the same thing on translation. So this kind of
and the other side of it is once you get it in here, because again, these aren't dead documents you shove in a drawer once you get them submitted. These things have to be constantly updated. Researchers want to know what's in there. Regulators want to know what's in there. So you can also imagine they're going to put all sorts of chatbots or query engines around this. So this is another advantage of it is once you get it in there, you now have a living document instead of a PDF or some other thing that's much harder to deal with.
Okay, great. Important it is. Good discussion. Thank you. Next one, Ankash.
The next one is a research paper. It talks about adaptive caching for faster video generation with diffusion transformers. And it comes from our favorite research firm, Meta.
Yeah, interesting article. Adam, what do you think about it?
Yeah, very clever, super interesting. I'll explain a little about what they did. I think it's probably optional. It is very much on the research side, but also will become very necessary. It's interesting that it's Meta, yet they talk about the performance increases on OpenSora, which I guess might be I'm not sure if it's an open source version of OpenAI Sora or if OpenAI's name is OpenSora and Meta has access to that already. But I found that very interesting. They've devised a couple of caching steps here that allow AI video generation to happen a lot faster. One of them is the scenario where it takes into consideration how much motion is in the video, because with higher motion, you have to effectively spend more time for the same amount of quality. The other example is to basically maximize, as they call it the quality latency trade-off. And the other one is, I guess, it says videos require fewer denoising steps to attain a reasonable quality. So they basically have something that's evaluating and coming up with a caching schedule to determine for the video that I'm going to be rendering, how much can I basically reduce latency, but still get a certain quality output. So it's very clever. It's very interesting, very optional at the same time.
Well, I wonder whether we should put it as important. It's 5-time improvement, no training necessary. So if you are doing the video production, you can unleash this model today. I don't know whether it's available, but these are the techniques that would reduce latency 5 times and produce good quality. So this is quite a significant step. It's not the incremental type of a step. It's a leap. So how about we put it as important for people in video production or using video to pay attention. They don't need to read the whole thing, but be aware. What do you think?
Well, I would say, sure, for people in video production, this is important. I think, first of all, there's no real definition of quality here. It's just subjective. Hey, they look okay. When you get into actually serious video production, it's not clear how this is going to work out. This is a couple of simple examples on a research project. So I think you have to be pretty cautious about how far you take this. And, this is, again, I would almost say this is optional for most people because, just as we were saying before, it's 5x better, which in any other industry would be astonishing. But, it's only 5x better. It's not even an order of magnitude. And we're seeing lots of things that are orders of magnitude improvements. So this is another optimization. As I said the other day, you can over optimize too early and you're like, you're making the horse carriages go faster while Henry Ford's working on the car. So you have to be careful where you put your money.
Okay. So we're going optional. Paul?
Optional, but I love that Tim quote. We may need to get a quote board here because I like the go faster horses as we drive by the car factory.
Optional.
We tend to do faster horses, faster buggies.
Faster buggies, yeah. Okay. Next one, Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one comes from Scale AI and it talks about Defense Llama, the LLM purpose-built for American national security.
Okay, this is Tim's.
Yeah, I would cite this as optional. It doesn't say much other than that they've made something that's fine-tuned using Defense Department data and that it's secure and only available to secure Defense Department customers. So, for the average person, really a non-issue because it's not even accessible. John, I'll channel my inner John and say, this is where we're going, folks. This stuff is already embedded deeply in our defense mentality and doesn't make my skin crawl yet, but doesn't make me sleep well at night either.
Yeah, there's it's scary when you think about it. But on the other hand, I'm sure they're putting all kinds of guardrails and applying it in the advisory modes, I would think. So, but
we certainly hope so, but we have no visibility. So
no visibility. Okay, optional. Paul, Adam, anything to add? Adam?
Optional.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would certainly beg the question for me, like, well, if Scale can do this for the military, then what can they do in terms of helping me own my own intelligence, right? I think that they're sort of going after that niche of really ensuring that they can lock down and provide a secure model for people. So that's certainly something to bear in mind. Optional nonetheless.
Okay, optional it is. All right, Ankash, last article of the day.
Yes, Luda. Just an interesting piece on this last one. So China has also prepared something related to defense, and they have also used Meta's Llama model. So, yeah.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
The last one is Waymo, right?
Yes.
We just did.
So the last one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Waymo is now exploring using Google's Gemini to train its robotaxis.
Yeah. So Paul you've ridden in Waymo, correct?
Yeah, dozens of times. I'm in San Francisco and we'll ride one again today, and this is optional. Adam, they should be fired if someone at Waymo is not thinking about how to use a generative AI within Waymo. So I had this as optional, but people, Waymos are just unbelievable, and I can't get off this thing. The thing about Waymo, Tim, is that it's so normalized here. It's ridiculous. It's completely in the background. Of course, there's autonomous, I don't know, 8,000 autonomous vehicles run around San Francisco, and no one talks about it here. But this article, optional in my mind.
But they're talking, so currently it's really all the pieces of the wisdom behind the driving model are really machine learning and deterministic. They're not probabilistic, correct? And so now with this probabilistic input, that's a little more scary, I think, and that's why they're being very cautious in deploying it, but thinking about it seriously.
Well, the models are always probabilistic. I guess the inputs are logs. So yes, if you're talking about the inputs, up until now, they're more deterministic, but the ML models they use for decisions, they're machine learning models. They're not generative AI models, but they are machine learning models. So they're definitely probabilistic, and that's one of their problems. And in particular, the biggest problem in autonomous driving right now is the out of sample problem. So, oh, the roads look like this for 100 days, but now there's some construction going on and yellow cones and it's different. And they're detouring you and it's never looked like that before and you've never seen any. And they for whatever reason, they've done it slightly differently and you've never seen this before. Humans have no problem with that. And generative AI and all machine learning models often have lots of problems with that.
Right, but I thought they put quite a number of knowledge graphs in there to actually guide the model through novelty, right?
They do, but the space is infinite. And
Yeah. No,
we've just not come close to being able to cover it yet. That's part of the problem is, well, it's a longer version, but we have hybrid models. If we would just say we're only going to have autonomous vehicles, then we could do things like put autonomous vehicle sensors in the roads that would help, and the cones and all sorts of stuff, which isn't that expensive. And then it would be a lot simpler. But as long as people want to own cars and humans are going to drive cars, it makes, and then people don't want to spend money to put the sensors in the roads, it's going to make it much more complicated.
So, Paul, when you're riding one of those, how does it feel scary?
No, it doesn't at all. And it's actually the very first time it's a little freaky, but they're defensive drivers here. Svioka and I had a big debate. What's safer, the average Uber driver or the Waymo? Hands down, the Waymo is.
Yeah.
And it is stunning how well it moves in and out. So I feel 100% safe. They're about 10% more expensive, although they sometimes drop. Their pricing goes from like $5 to $80 for like the same ride. They really do a dynamic pricing. And it's absolutely featured. Now, I think the bigger issue, Tim, is I don't know how these ever going to make money here. I mean, the car rolls up. It's an $80,000 Jag with probably $100,000 to $300,000 of LiDAR and all this equipment on it. But
well, the good news is when you're Google, you have infinite cash, right?
Yeah.
So they can fund this thing forever. And I think what their plan is, like all these companies, they're going to create a car eventually. Yeah. They're going to create their own cars, and they're, I'm sure, feeling like if they can do that at scale, they can not only get efficiencies in the custom, all the sensors and everything that have to go in the car, but also the car itself. I don't need a Jaguar, right? Yeah. The Amazon car, which I think is also rolling around San Francisco, is already out. I think it was Zoox, and Amazon bought Zoox. So we'll see. Yeah.
One, I was at I shouldn't always say. I was at dinner last night with an executive, and one of the comments he made here in San Francisco that was very interesting was that the Uber drivers are incented to get the trip done as fast as you can to get on to the next one so they can make money. So they're always kind of going faster here. And Waymo, because of the cruise accident and everything else, I mean, they really focus on safety first. So there's a really disincentive for safety on the Uber side.
Yeah. Okay. Adam, anything to add? We're going optional on this one, even though very interesting. Adam, when you're on mute.
Oh, I smiled and shook my head.
Okay.
Nothing.
All right.
Nothing to add. I mean, it reads from the article like they're going to use both, right? They're not going to throw away with the existing sensors and the other machine learning. It's just to supplement and complement it in the situations like Tim's saying. When it's dealing with things it's never seen before, it needs all that additional information about the construction or the animal in the road.
Yeah, they're mostly trying to generate more and more synthetic data, because this is one case where, yes, the more scenarios they have, the better. Although I noted that they don't even take LiDAR and radar into account because it's too compute intensive. So they're missing their two most important sensors. So this is early stage stuff.
Okay, well, thank you for great discussion. We have our 6 articles rated. This is the result. We have 1 important and 5 optional, with a lot of interesting use cases going optional this time. Okay, so anything, any news? Oh, we lost Paul. Anything to add? No, Tim. Okay, well.
Hey.
Thank you, listeners, for joining and participating, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Night.
Good night.
Good morning. Good afternoon.